Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential Podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I am Andrew Kahn.
I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
Michigan could not keep up with USC and lost an important Big Ten game on Saturday night. We discuss what went wrong, some of the positives, and what it means for Michigan going forward. Coming up on Wolverine Confidential. All right, Aaron and Ryan, good to be with you two here on Sunday night. The night after Michigan lost at USC, 31-13. Fell to 4-2 on the season. 2-1 in the Big Ten. Fell out of the top 25 that was released on Sunday afternoon. Aaron, you were there at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, so we'll start with you. First of all, what was the atmosphere like? What was the fan breakdown? Because that was something that was talked about before the game, and then even during by the broadcasters.
Yeah, that was tough to tell, just because of the color deal, right? Like USC has got that mustard yellow and red, and Michigan's the maize and blue, so you couldn't tell really the yellow who it was for. It did get loud at times for USC. And then when Michigan, I think, scored that touchdown there in the second half to make it, an 11-point game. After the first touchdown, Michigan's first touchdown to make it 7-7, there was a loud, audible "Let's go Blue" chant in the stadium. So there were a lot of Michigan fans there. It was tough to tell to gauge. Best guess, and this is me pulling on my butt, I'd say probably 65-35 USC. But it was. I will say this: it was a packed stadium. Every seat that was available for purchase was filled. It was an incredible sight. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to the Coliseum. Michigan hasn't played there in a long time. There's been no reason to go, but it was a cool environment. If there's anyone out there who didn't get an opportunity to go or didn't go, it has a chance or wants to do in the future, I'd recommend it. The surrounding area isn't great. It's not in a great part of Los Angeles, but it's an historic venue. It's pretty incredible up close and personal. It was definitely one of the better road environments, I'd say.
All right, let's get into the game, and we'll talk about the offense and defense. We'll kind of break it down, some of the important drives and plays. But it's kind of first thing, just kind of overarching takeaway from this game. Like, was it as bad as the score indicated? Was it how surprising was it to you? Kind of wherever you want to go with this, as far as something you want to take away from this game.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it looked worse than the final score at times. Like they just weren't in sync. Like defensively, it was just either not lined. It was amazing to me to see how easily USC moved the ball repeatedly against this Michigan defense. We knew USC was explosive. They came in with the second-ranked offense in the country, but I just felt like Michigan would have a pretty good game plan, and if they got punched in the mouth early like they did against Wisconsin, they'd be able to make adjustments, and they just never were able to do that on Saturday. USC's offense was really impressive, and I was pretty shocked that Michigan wasn't able to do more offensively themselves. They scored as many points against USC as Missouri State. Not ideal.
I echo everything he just said. It was after the game, the company line, I guess, so to speak, was Michigan's tackling issues, and they were a huge issue. There were several plays that Michigan could have cut down the yardage with a simple tackle, or they whiffed on a guy and it didn't work. But it's amazing to me, and I realized it as the game was going on, and I rewatched the game today, and it backed it up. Just how out of position Michigan's defensive linemen and linebackers were. I mean, they were over pursuing at times. They just never seemed to be in the right spots. They took poor angles at the ball. They looked ill prepared, and I'm not saying they weren't prepared, because that's not fair to them. But it just, I don't know what they were preparing for during the week, because it clearly wasn't what we saw on Saturday night. USC had their number. I mean, the dump offs were apparent. And look, we've seen Wink Martindale's defense, especially at Michigan, get beat by that in the past. I mean, Texas did it to them last year, pretty good. And when you over pursue and you can't get pressure on the quarterback because they're dumping it off so quickly, you're going to get beat. And that's basically what happened. There weren't a ton of deep ball passes here. It was a lot of dink and dunks that turned into 15, 20 yards. And it it sliced Michigan to death. And before you know it, they're down 21-7. They become a one-dimensional team, and they didn't have the horses to keep up or come back. So it was, I don't know. I was a little surprised. I thought this was going to be a close game. I thought Michigan's offense would be able to keep up, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But no, this could have been even worse. I mean, 489 yards of total offense for USC. I mean, they should have probably at least at minimum scored another 4 to 7 points. So I think it could have been worse than the final score indicated.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, obviously you've got the two USC drives that get into Michigan's red zone and then end in a turnover, which of course the defense has a say in that. But I mean, USC is driving after the first touchdown, hit a big pass, and then the guy fumbles inside Michigan 10, and the interception that Maeva threw was just kind of bizarre. No need for that, as is like, all right, either go out of bounds or throw it away or whatever. Kind of just floats it up, and again, that was very fortunate for Michigan there. So yeah, I get it on that. At the same time, Michigan did some, has some self-inflicted, wounds as well. And, yeah, didn't fully capitalize on their opportunities either. So maybe in the end, the score was fair. But as far as just how surprising it was, I mean, yeah, maybe exactly the way it went down, but the fact that Michigan lost on the road to this USC team just didn't stun me at all. Again, this was a team we all picked to go 9-3. So this was a game that you figure now, looking at the rest of the schedule, was one that easily could have been a loss. I don't think they've made strides since last season. There's no doubt about it, but they haven't taken that big of a leap forward to think that they were going to be, in contention necessarily for a Big Ten title. And I think this loss just kind of proved that. Let's talk about the offense, though, in particular. We can go any which way you guys want with this. To me, just one of the huge, just maybe the turning point in the game. Michigan driving late third quarter, down 21-7. Consecutive just sidearm strikes from Underwood. Before a more traditional throw that down the field right to the goal line that Andrew Marsh kind of has knocked out of his hands right there. Could have been a touchdown or at least got him real close. And then a couple plays later, I think was the interception. I mean, that kind of killed a lot of momentum. I know they maybe had a chance again later, but that was huge and just kind of indicative of what kind of night it was for Michigan.
Yeah, because they weren't they weren't moving the ball a lot before then. I mean, they had that one touchdown drive, 14 play, 86-yard drive, and other than that, it was a lot of 3 and outs and punts and everything else. So they needed everything they could try to get offensively. And again, it was, it was, they had trouble finding rhythm all night, and they were able to get it late, and it didn't work out. And at that point, you're playing catch up. I mean, I think they were down 11 at that point. They needed a quick score, and Andrew Marsh was a bright spot. You mentioned him. I think he was probably the lone bright spot of the offense. Justice Haynes goes down to injury. That leaves Jordan Marshall to pretty much handle all the running back duties. And I thought he fared well, but at that point, Michigan was playing from behind, and there was a little bit of sense of urgency there, so they had to throw the ball. So, it's hard to knock the offense when the defense played as poorly as it did. The Michigan defense gave Michigan, the offense at least, very little of a fighting chance here. I'm going down 7-0 early. Yes, Michigan was able to respond, but I mean, when you constantly, let USC score points in nearly every drive, it's especially on the road, it's an unenviable task.
Another thing I noticed offensively, and it's not surprising because Colson Loveland is a massive hole to fill on the offense. But you would think, I was thinking with, okay, Marlon Klein's fully healthy. You got Hoden Hansen back. You have your top 2 tight ends healthy for almost maybe the first time this season, and Michigan didn't really utilize them at all. And USC was able to hit a couple seam shots against the Michigan defense. And Michigan's offense didn't get Hansen or Klein involved. And yeah, when you have Justice Haynes out and a receiving group that's pretty bare besides Andrew Marsh and Donovan McCulley, thought they would maybe potentially go in that direction a little bit more. They didn't. And yeah, it's just lackluster performance.
Yeah, the defense, obviously, like you said, not good, but only 13 points wasn't going to win this game either. But both sides of the ball certainly had blame. Yeah, what did you make of Haynes's injury and that effect on the game? Because as you pointed out, like Marshall did well. I mean, on the the per yards per carry, they were both right there at 5. Marshall lacks maybe the big playability that Haynes could have got you there with some of his runs, but I don't know. It didn't seem like that was a huge deal, and obviously, USC had the same issue and had other guys come in and step up.
Yeah, that's I think probably the difference between the two, right? Justice Haynes has that big playability that could potentially get Michigan some quick points, and maybe if tried to flip that game a little bit, and you just didn't have enough opportunity to do that. He was fine. We saw, right, 10 carries, 51 yards. Sherrone Moore after the game called it a side issue. He was on the bike on the sideline the second half with his helmet on, and Sherrone even made a comment after the game that he maybe could have played, but they were being overly cautious with him. So it doesn't sound too serious, but I mean either way, it left Michigan with Jordan Marshall and Bryson Kudsdal at the running game in the backfield, which Marshall was fine, as we said. I mean, he was averaging almost 5 yards a carry, which is fine. But when you're playing from behind, you're down 2 scores. You need explosive plays, and he hasn't really given you a whole lot in that department this year. So it forced Michigan to have to throw the ball more. And I thought Underwood handled himself fine, but again, they were behind, and you don't want to be in that position on the road against a high-powered offense. You don't want to get in a track meet with these guys. USC is going to perform better than you in that scenario. So Michigan just couldn't do it. So it was, they were behind the 8 ball from the get-go. I blame the defense. I don't think the offense was anything great, but it didn't help Haynes not being there. But I don't know. The blame on this one to me is the Michigan defense. They were atrocious.
Yeah, you mentioned the USC backup running back stepping up. I mean, I honestly think you two could have hit some of those holes and picked up some pretty big explosive plays with how big the holes were and how poor Michigan's run fits were at times on Saturday too. It's and I'm looking at the snap counts too, and I saw this online a little bit too. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Michigan is rotating too many guys defensively. Like it's hard for your top guys to maybe get in a rhythm when you're rotating so frequently, and it looks like maybe guys weren't on the same page at times. And when you have 17 players play 20 or more defensive snaps, I mean that's a lot of different moving parts in that defense. And I get trying to build depth and keeping guys fresh, but I mean, I think even on like Michigan's first drive, it's like they had all backups in on the D line with it like 6-7 plays into the game. It's like, man, that's you want to make a statement early on, you would think with your top guys, and then bring maybe the backups in a little bit later. But I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
No, it's a good point, and that's the issue you run into when you run a complicated scheme like Wink Martindale's doing, right? He was talking about this being a positionless defense and giving opponents different looks and having guys play multiple positions. When you do that with a lot of guys, the typical risk for communication issues, guys being out of position, alignment issues is more likely to happen, and you saw that happen on Saturday. So I don't know what the preparation looked like on during the week in practice. Players said they felt like they practiced well during the week and they were prepared, but you got in the field there Saturday, you flip on the tape and you watch the game, and it just they didn't look like it just wasn't there. So I don't know what happened. It's head scratching to me. Just again going back, like the front, the linebackers, they were just there's no sync there at all, and it was apparent from the get go. You thought they'd get it fixed, as you said, like they last week against Wisconsin, they let Wisconsin drive down the field, and they were able to adjust well. Obviously, different team. USC is a lot more explosive. They got more playmakers, but man, there was no adjustment at all. At least, I mean, they didn't follow through. Let's put it that way. The players they weren't in position all night, and didn't really change as the game wore on.
You guys want to talk defense? I completely get it. That is the story of the game. Really, let's just say one more thing about the offense, specifically Bryce Underwood. I mean, what did you guys make of his performance? 15 of 24 for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns. The interception we mentioned earlier. Not a threat with his legs in this game at all. to me, I did see some freshman mistakes. I mean, the sack he took, early in the second quarter, on third down, kind of put him out of field goal range there. I wondered if just last year he just outruns those guys, in high school, and just maybe thought he could in this game, and couldn't. Again, he wasn't terrible by any means, but I mean, it was I think clear who was the more veteran quarterback on the field on Saturday.
100%. He looked like he had a freshman jitters, especially early in the game. I mean, he overthrew McCulley in the first play. He threw a screen pass to Justice Haynes that was kind of out in front of him, difficult to catch. He looked like he had happy feet a little bit early in the game. I think as the game wore on, he got better and more comfortable. But you could tell, maybe the big game environment, or just the Coliseum. I don't know. Maybe it got to him a little bit early in Saturday. But look, I mean, the protect, I don't know what the grades were, but the protection I thought wasn't particularly great, especially early.
Worst of
Again,
the season.
oh yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Checks out. So, and again, when we've talked about this, like, he hasn't gotten a whole lot of help from the receivers either. So, I don't know. It could have been worse, right? He had one interception. He threw a couple of touchdowns. It was fine, but for him to just be fine in this type of game, you needed more elsewhere, whether it was in the run game or some help on, with the receivers, and he just didn't get it. So there just was a lack of help all around. And again, I keep going back to this, but you can't fall behind on the road like this, against a team like this, like they did. It's rarely going to work out. And you saw that, transpire on Saturday night.
I'm glad you brought that up, Aaron, because that's I wanted to bring this up on the podcast. It has been a common theme. Oklahoma allowing opening touchdown drive. Wisconsin struggling, especially on the road in a tough environment. If you win the toss, like, I get the common thing to do is to defer to the second half. But like, if your defense is struggling this much right out the gate, and you have a freshman quarterback, like the Lions tonight against Kansas City, win the toss and receive, wanting to put pressure on right away, make a early statement. And Michigan continues to defer when winning the toss in these big games. It seems like, especially on the road, and they're falling behind early. And I don't know if it's following analytics or what, but sometimes maybe you just gotta go with your gut. And if Michigan just takes the ball right off the bat and just picks up a first down or two to maybe take the crowd out of it, and just get Bryce Underwood a little bit of confidence, instead of, hey, you're down in a 7-0 hole already again on the road. Maybe that changes things a little bit. I mean, they did come back and tie the game at 7, but it's definitely been a common theme how they've been starting defensively.
Life is beautiful and fragile. We fall. We get tired. And sometimes we get sick. But with Corewell Health, we are also strong. We fight disease. We battle cancer. We come together. We come back. We push forward. When the body breaks, we break through. Corewell Health. We can.
Let's talk about the tackling issues. That's what, as Aaron's stories showed, that was what the players kept saying after the game. I mean, yes, they're definitely that we saw that, but I don't know. To me, like, there's no reason to think that these same players were suddenly like worse at that, in this game than they were in other games. I think the reason is because, like, there was just they were put in bad spots. I mean, how many times in previous games did you see, first of all, there's only one guy having to make a tackle to stop a play? Usually there were 2, 3, 4, 5 Wolverines, around the ball in previous games. So I mean, that to me was the biggest thing, is that the poor tackling was a result of poor angles, which was a result
Mhm.
of being out of position, which was a result of, I'm not sure, but yeah.
You absolutely nailed it. It was a symptom of a larger problem, right? Michigan was misaligned. They were out of position. In some cases, they over pursued. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I watched like Jay Shambar and the guys come off the edge, and they were like beyond the quarterback as the ball's already been dunked down, and the running back or the slot receivers going down the field. So you're already down a defensive player to begin with. So I don't know, a lot of over pursuing, a lot of guys out of position. Like in those type of situations, that's where those missed tackles come about because you're taking bad angles. You're not directly on the ball. I think Rod Moore, he was asked about it after the game Saturday. And he gave a good point. He's like, guys were misleveraged. They weren't necessarily in a position to make a good tackle. And again, it goes back to they just they weren't in the right proper run fits. They weren't in proper alignment. There were communication issues. There were plays where guys weren't even set when the play was being run. Tempo was clearly screwing with Michigan. So I don't know. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of the Don Brown days where like they'd fall behind and they were able to like adjust as the game went on. And it just this wasn't it. Wink Martindale no answers, which was a little surprising to me. I thought he'd adjust at some point and get his guys in position, especially at halftime when it was still a game and Michigan was still within striking distance. But no, it got worse. It seemed like as the game wore on.
Very soft coverage early too, especially from Michigan's defensive backs. I mean, the tackles became even harder to make. You'd think, all right, keep everything in front of you, but they were so far off by the time they caught the ball that there was still space for the receivers to operate after the catch. So I'm not sure what that was all about.
The soft coverage has been a theme all year. I mean, it seems like they've been willing to give that up to get home on the quarterback with the pressure. The problem is that the pressure wasn't getting home on Saturday, and there wasn't enough time to get pressure. I mean, Jade Maeva was kind of dinking and dunking and getting, as soon as he saw guys coming at him, he was getting rid of the football. So there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities to do that. And again, that's you get one or two guys out of position. You're down one or two defensive players. That's two less guys to try and make a tackle on the ball. So they were losing numbers right there. So I don't know. I don't know how much this blame goes on Wink Martindale, how much blame is on the players. But something didn't add up in preparation and in the game Saturday.
What did you make of Maeva's screen passes, man? Some of those were I've never seen a quarterback throw it quite so high. I mean, he lofted one of them was just incredible how high he floated it. It was something to see, these screen passes.
Yeah, I don't know if you practiced that or that just touching the game. I don't know, but yeah, there were some.
Didn't Bryce Underwood have one get batted down early in the game? So I think maybe he saw that too. He's like, I'm not letting that happen.
Yeah.
I'm making sure, and it still worked out. It was still ended up being a big gain for them. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know. There was some stuff like that first touchdown from USC. Like NBC did bring its rules expert on, and he said it like definitely should have been pass interference. There was a couple other instances of that where USC had the ball, made a play, and their expert at least felt like something was off, but not enough to explain everything that was going on. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of what Luke Fickell was saying about, Michigan the previous week where, he was like, man, those guys just made some plays offensively. The receivers went up and got some balls, and I wish we could have done that. And that seemed to be what USC did in this. I mean, that catch to end the first half was just huge. I mean, Michigan, it wasn't a 2-minute drive, more of a 3-minute drill, I guess. But you hope Michigan can just hold them to a field goal at least. But instead, USC gets a touchdown. I don't know. I'm thinking of that Andrew Marsh, that long quick touchdown, which is exactly what Michigan needed. They go for 2, which maybe we can talk about that decision. But immediately then it's a 3rd and 10 for USC. Right back at you. You can get a 3 and out, get the ball back. This is going to be perfect. And he hits the tight end over the middle for a first down, and it's just deflating. They just couldn't really get off the field.
No, yeah, very much so. And I guess we probably should talk about that 2-point play. I mean, it didn't really play or make any difference in the game, but still, I understand teams why they do that now. It's when you're down 2 scores, and the theory is, okay, if we get it right the first time, then we only need to like kick a field goal to win or score a touchdown to win. And if we don't get it, we have another shot to get it later on too. So you feel confident that one out of the 2 you would get as far as 2-point conversions. But I think that play call was just horrible. Like that's such a low percentage play right there. And yeah, I mean, Bryce Underwood, we've talked about maybe enough touch on the ball. That one, he did not. And it wasn't really, there was no chance for Donovan McCulley on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you crunch the numbers, it's an analytical decision, right? Like 2-point conversion success rate is somewhere between I think 45 and 50%, I think. So the idea is if you you're down 9 instead of 10. So like Sharon said, a touchdown in the field goal wins the game instead of having to send it to overtime and risking, losing the game there. I mean, either way, it is what it is. They were trailing, they're trying to make up points. Didn't work out, and at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. But I don't know. You can have the 2-point argument debate all day. It is what it is. It didn't matter to me a whole lot.
No, they yes, they have their chart, I'm sure, and they just followed that. But yeah, I'm not sure that's that they've got the same analytics that some other teams have, because that was a little different. But yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, again, USC with their that King Miller kid is a walk on apparently, and came on and shredded Michigan. There was just a lot of big plays that were made when one of the other running backs who scored a touchdown for them. Brian Jackson. I don't I don't know if you saw that. I watched Lincoln Riley's post game press conference. Like, he was ruled out on the pregame injury report, and yet he played. And I guess they like called the Big Ten like during the game to like make sure that this was okay. That they then played him. I guess it was just like an emergency situation with the other running backs getting hurt, and all right, he's got this turf toe, but all right, he's been cleared, and all right, we'll give it a go. So it's just very interesting. But that's just the kind of night it was for Michigan, with these other guys coming off, either non-scholarship or literally just off the injury report, and scoring touchdowns against them.
Yeah, very bizarre, right? Like again, it was guys you wouldn't expect. King Miller came in as like their third running back. I mean, he put some numbers up this year, but nothing like 158 yards and a touchdown. He had a couple of big runs, like they kind of in a way out of nowhere. So kudos to them. Yeah, as for the availability report, I think the Big Ten's gonna have to reassess that, because the whole point of coming out with those in the get go was to like for like betting purposes, and to like be transparent about who's available and who's not, and to like have a change like that mid game. That was the first time I've run into that. I'm not saying it hasn't happened elsewhere in the conference or even other leagues, but it was very bizarre. So I don't. We're gonna have to dive into the actual rules behind that, because I thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, I would hope that would be a fine or some sort of thing. I would hope nobody's putting a huge bet on like USC because their like four string running back is listed as out before the game. But yeah, if it's a bigger name player, that could definitely play a bigger factor in betting circumstances too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's any follow up in that regard.
For the other team too, right? I'd think they'd at least
Yeah.
look at it and know. But yeah, again, just I don't know. It's the start of the second quarter. The USC cheerleaders are still on the field when Michigan's offense trying to snap the ball. I don't know if that was like evident live, but on TV it was. It was kind of funny. Again, just a lot of things just did not go Michigan's way in this game. Again, I guess, yeah. Anything else from offense, defense, special teams, coaching decisions? What was said after the game, Aaron? That is notable to share with our listeners.
And not a ton. It was a very uneventful post game. And they typically are in these situations, especially after big losses, right? Players and coaches don't want to say much, but you could tell the players were clearly agitated. They didn't want to entertain much of anything from a questions perspective. Sherrone Moore gave the typical, like, we need to get better. We need to get better at tackling, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's clear that this team probably isn't a playoff contender at this point. That was one of these, we were trying to figure out, like, right, how they were going to perform in this game. Were they a playoff contender? I think the result shows that at this point they're not, and they're gonna probably have to run the table at this point to get back into contention here. But I don't know. USC is probably a little bit better than I thought they were. And we knew their offense was explosive. I thought they held up relatively well in the trenches too. We were talking about coming into this game, the physicality aspect, and I thought one of the knocks against USC in the past was just how maybe they just weren't a physical bunch. I think they've made some strides in those areas. I don't know. They got back into the top 25. They got in the top 25 this week. They may be, I don't know, the fourth or fifth best Big Ten team. I guess we'll see, but I don't know. Kudos to them. I think they're going to have a shot here to make a run this year, I think.
That USC Notre Dame game next week is going to be pretty fascinating. Two explosive offenses. Are we going to get 80 points, 85 points in that game? I mean, potentially it should be a fun one.
Yeah, listen, we spelled this out kind of leading into this game, like how important this was as a swing game for Michigan to, maybe sneak into the Big Ten championship game or be a playoff team. So now they lose. I mean, we're not overreacting to say that this is a real, if not a dagger, it's a huge blemish now in their on their resume and their hopes to do those things. I don't know. Like Zook, you do the Big Ten power rankings every week. I don't know. Can you give us a little sneak peek, maybe? Like where do you think Michigan is? To me, they're certainly not Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and I guess maybe you have to kind of put them behind like USC. But to me, they're still in that next tier. But I don't know.
They're still ahead of Penn State.
That's for sure.
I'll tell you that. Yeah, no, I think they're probably in the same tier as like in Illinois. I mean, right around like Washington. Yeah, I mean this, yeah, like in that second tier for sure. Like yeah, I don't have it pulled up in front. Last week's ranking pulled up in front of me, but yeah, it's definitely there's a big drop off between them and the top few schools and the rest at this point.
I'd agree with that. Someone was a vote in the AP Top 25 poll. I mean, obviously, I had Ohio State 1, Indiana 3, and Oregon still top 10. Beyond that, I mean, I did have Nebraska ranked. I do have Washington ranked. I did rank USC, obviously, and then Illinois, Michigan were just out of the top 25, but they're probably in the middle. But I don't know. The Big Ten's kind of eating itself up here, so we'll see where things go. Michigan's, I guess, better than Nebraska, but are they still now? I don't know. I don't know. I think we're staring at probably at best right now 9-3, maybe 8-4. I don't know. I don't. And we'll get into this later in the week, but I don't think the Washington game's a slam dunk in any respects anymore.
I feel like we got to hit on Penn State and James Franklin real quick here before we end. I mean, it is. I don't know. It is wild. They went to the college football playoff semifinal last year, real close to getting to the championship game. But then, man, the preseason ranking and just how quickly it's fallen apart. Overtime loss to Oregon, where people are all talking about, okay, another big game that he can't win. And now, well, geez, at least he was taking care of business in those other games to put himself, or to make those top 10 losses disappointing. Then you go and lose to UCLA and then at home to Northwestern back-to-back weeks. It's just stunning. And then just to spell it out, the news, James Franklin then fired here on Sunday afternoon. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm trying to compare it to like even last year when Michigan had that tough stretch where they lost like 4 or 5, they didn't have any losses to like a Northwestern or a UCLA. Like they lost to pretty good opponents. So it's a little, I can definitely see why Penn State decided to make the move. But like, man, it's just crazy how a team that talented can just lay an egg 3 straight, or I mean the Oregon game, they were in it till the end, and then just to completely give up on the season, give up on the coach, it's going to be fascinating to see the fallout from that too. They've already had a bunch of decommitments. It's going to open up the pool of players here. There's going to be a lot of good recruits on the market after this news. It'll be fascinating to see who replaces him there.
The swift downfall to me was stunning, just the way how quickly this transpired. But the end result did not surprise me. Our colleague at PennLive.com, Johnny McGonigal, wrote actually an excellent column today on the decision to fire James Franklin. And he made the case James Franklin was kind of a product of his own success and high expectations, right? Like he had won a lot of games at Penn State. Everything was on the table this year for them to do it all, right? Win a national championship. They were picked to win the Big Ten. They had the experienced quarterback. They had a high level defensive coordinator come in, some great players on that side of the ball. Everything was set up for him to do it all this year. And then you lose to Oregon close, and then you lose a second game, and then you lose at home to a Northwestern team that's not going anywhere. So it's clear he lost the locker room probably after the second loss. And I don't know. I mean, we joke about James Franklin not being able to win the big game, and that certainly was the case again this year. And I think Penn State just had enough. I mean, everything was set up for him to be successful this year, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's just to have it, just mid-season like this but I guess that's just the norm now with the transfer portal and just recruiting and all that. I don't know. It's just everything's getting pushed up a little more, and it's just,
and the buyout, it's like $50 million. Right. And I'm not saying they don't have the money to pay that out, but that's a lot of money to pay out to a coach who's going to be sitting on the sideline, not helping you at all.
Yeah, really, really absurd. I shared a graphic in my in-laws on a group chat about like, how much he was going to be making. Like, it broke it down not just for per year, but month, day, minute to hour. Just like it was pretty astronomical. So, to not coach Penn State. So
That's a good
yeah.
gig if you can get it. Not many people can. So I guess
I-
kudos to James Franklin for that.
Yeah. So yeah, Michigan's not. It could be much worse. Is my point, I guess, to Michigan fans. So we'll see. They'll try to bounce back here against Washington, a team now they'll be playing for the third year in a row. Beat them in the national championship, of course, and then lost the rematch last year out in Seattle. But Michigan certainly seems better equipped to handle them this time around. But should be a competitive game. I think we'll have plenty more coverage of that later in the week. Read all of our Michigan Wolverines content at mlive.com/Wolverines. Thanks for listening.